Hi, folks. We're back.
Hi, everybody. Jimmy here, old faithful sidekick. How are you, Larry?
I'm all right. Did you get an agent yet?
Yeah, no. William Morris is calling ICM. I'm getting a deluge of calls. It's too much. It's too much.
All right. Next thing I know, you're going to come in with your hair dyed. You're going to start getting manicures.
I used to get manicures when I was 8 years old. That was the thing to do in the 60s, that and a hot comb.
All right. I was asked many times. There's a couple of things that I'm going to do now because there's so many questions that come in. Everybody asks me for questions about Benny and Mike, and we're putting together a whole bunch of them. I got some friends telling me some stories about me, about Benny, and we're going to do a whole podcast about them stories. So the funny ones, the real funny ones that. I also get a lot of questions about different racetracks that I raced at, things that happen at these racetracks, and I just picked out 3 or 4 that I thought might be interesting. But I have to tell you that at a racetrack, just about any driver could tell you that just about every night something memorable happens, whatever it might be. So that's easy, but I just put down a couple, so maybe I could explain in a little bit more detail. First, I'm gonna I want to read you something that happened at one of the New York tracks. There's a trainer called Lou Martinez. I'm sure everybody listening knows who Lou Martinez is. He was in standardbred racing for years, for 40 years. And I went to high school with him, Newtown High School. I walked in and I was there till I was 16. As soon as I hit 16, they threw me out. In fact, I spent the whole high school in Dean's office. It was the first day I did something bad. And but anyway, Lou Martinez was there, and then I met him again at the racetrack. He lived right down the street from Roosevelt Raceway. Anyway, again, I'm going to read it because if I don't, I'll screw it all up. In 1979, the standardbred pacer Hot Hitter won 2 legs of the Triple Crown in harness racing. He was trained by Lou Martinez and driven by Hervé Filion, and he earned close to $1 million. His groom, John Kellum, he was an old black guy from down south, nice guy. John was totally devoted to his horse, the Hot Hitter, and he slept right in the good weather. He slept right outside the stalls in the tack room right near him. He just loved that horse. At the end of the horse's career, he was syndicated for $6 million. And I think it was in 1979. His career was over. They syndicated him for $6 million. And at that time, John, the groom, he was old and he was ready to retire. And Louis asked him where was he going to go, and he said, "I'd like to go back down south and just live out my life there, and that's what I think I'm going to do." So Louis and the owners of Hot Hitter, they put together some money, and they gave him some money, and they gave him a $25,000 bonus for taking care of the horse. And everyone wished him well. They had a little party for him, and they all said goodbye, and that was it. And they figured that he was gone and never to see him again. Well, a few weeks later, in the stable gate comes this big Cadillac, and who's driving it? But John. So everybody is shocked, and when he pulls up to the barn, he gets out, and Louis says, "What are you doing?" And I wrote his exact words here. And John says, "I was thinking about everything, and I figured that I could always sleep in my car. but I couldn't drive a motherfucking house. Them were his words.
Wow.
And everybody laughed, and he hung around for a while, and he had a big Cadillac, and he lived out his life. But I thought it was a nice story. He was a good guy. Louis was a good guy too. He got out of standardbred racing, went into thoroughbred racing, and he did well. He was good. He was a good guy, good friend. In fact, one of his closest friends I just had dinner with. All right, now I'm going to answer some questions. People want to know what tracks I raced at, and I put a couple down here with some stories that that you might get a kick out of. The first one I want to talk about was Green Mountain Park. Now, I think 90% of the people watching were in harness racing, so they'll understand a lot of what I'm saying. I raced it when Tannenbaum threw me out. I raced it at these racetracks I'm going to mention now. The first one was Green Mountain Park. Well, Green Mountain Park is in Pinole, Vermont, and it's a great skiing place, but it's a terrible racetrack. The paddock was an open paddock, no roof. It was just walls, and you just put your horse in there. It was an open paddock. The average temperature there was probably 0. And then by the end of the race meet, it started to thaw out. And the barn area became maybe 2-3 inches of complete mud. Wow. And it was terrible. Now, I am almost positive Eddie Lohmeyer was there. I'm trying to think of guys that were there that's still alive. I think maybe Lohmeyer was there. I know Lonnie Beer was there, Gabe Basacci, there was Richie Aiken. There was a lot of guys there, but they're gone. But the track, when it started to thaw out, it was they floated the track. They got 2 big tractor tires, them big, huge tires, and they chained them together and chained them to a tractor, and the tractor would go down, and the mud would be at least maybe 8 inches, 10 inches, a foot deep. And that's how they floated the racetrack, with these 2 big tires. I won a race there, and it was Mr. Spindletop. And I won the race. Nobody's going to believe this, but it's true. I won a race there, and the track was so bad. He used to hit that one left shin really bad. So everybody who raced in the mud when it thawed out had put no boots on a horse. They just, no. Even if a horse needed them, they didn't put them on because they'd get sucked off. Me, like an idiot, I says, this boot will stay on, because he used to whack that one shin pretty good, so I left it on. Going past the quarter pole, I was in front. Going past the quarter pole, the boot starts coming off, slapping everything, and it was slapping around. Now the paddock was right around going to the half. I pulled off because I couldn't go on no more, because he went into a run, and the groom ran out. I said, "What's the matter?" I says, "Rip that boot off." And he ripped the boot off. I got back on the bike, and I won the race in 2:28. 2 minutes and 28 seconds. Now, I know nobody's going to believe that story, but it's a true story. And they left him up. I stopped at the paddock. They pulled the boot off. I got back on a bike, caught the field, passed the field, and won the race. That's a true story. And I hope somebody that's listening raced there and remember that night. Another thing that happened to me in Green Mountain.
That's a good story, Larry.
It's a true story. Nobody's going to believe it, but it's true. I'm hoping that somebody...
Your talent, I believe it, because you were that good. You were that good.
Talent had nothing to do. Nothing had nothing to do with it. I just had the best horse. The boot was flapping all around.
Everything encompassed everything, and that's why you pulled it off.
All right. Now, same racetrack, only 2 months earlier, when it's below 0 out. I had about 4 or 5 horses in. And like I said, it's an open paddock, so the grooms are standing there with the horse and everything. And naturally, you have to warm them up yourself. And by the time you get off a horse that you're warming up, your fingers are frozen, and it was just bad. There was sleet coming down and everything, and we raced. And that's what I mean about the people in charge. as long as the grandstands were full, they didn't care about the people. They didn't care about the horses. They didn't care. I start looking this stuff up because it was really bad. I found out through my research that a horse could withstand in race in temperatures right around 15 below zero without any real physical harm coming to them.
Wow.
Now, I think that's true. That's what the university told me, because that was the concern, because every night it was below zero with sleet coming down and everything, but the management didn't care. If the animal rights people were around then, and I don't know if they were, because this was in the 70s, they would have canceled all them races. But the racetrack, their motto was, if the people can get to the track, the races will not be called off. One night, it was probably 10, 15 below zero. Sleet was coming down. It was terrible. I had 4 or 5 horses in, so naturally, you got to warm up. To warm up, you just jog them once around. Sometimes you just left them in. You didn't even take them. In fact, I remember, I'm just going to go off a minute to Yonkers Raceway. One year in Yonkers, because the winters were terrible, and they actually put, and there'll be guys out there that know this, they actually put sauna trailers in the paddock because the track was being dried out. Instead of scraping it and everything, it was being dried out with jet engines. So now we have 100 horses in the paddock. We're ready to race. You couldn't warm up because they had these jet engines, and it sounded just like you were on a runway.
But wouldn't that make the dirt all fly? Or
no, it was like a hair dryer, but with jet engines to dry the dirt. It was a crazy idea because the noise made the horses go crazy.
Sure.
Then if the people that wanted the horses to be warmed up, they won't put them in the sauna trailer. That didn't last too long, but that's how idiotic these people. They just don't have a clue. But anyway, that night I had 4 or 5 horses in. By the last race, Gabe Bonacci put me down on a horse called, I think it was Miss Carol Yu, but I'm probably wrong. Rotten Pullin' Witch. Bad, pulling bad. And at Green Mountain, there was a trailer, 2 horses trailed. The 7 and 8 trailed. I think they only had 6 at the gate. I don't remember. All I know is I was trailing. And there was no way that I could stay behind the horse. I had to be right on the gate. Now we scored down, and she's pulling, and I'm frozen. Anyway, we get behind the gate, and sure enough, I can't hold her, and I climb over the guys. The gate leaves, they open up, and I just can't get around horses. There's a whole field in front of me because nobody wants to fall in line. It was
plus
terrible.
it was
anyway,
cold too, right?
It was freezing. All right, I get in a wreck. I climb over somebody. I get in a wreck, and okay, 2 or 3 horses go down. I go now. There's no ambulance at them tracks. There's no ambulance. There's no nothing. You're on your own. You're on your own. Now the grooms and everything catch the loose horses and everything. I get up and I walk back to the paddock. And I get out of my jumpsuit, my driving colors.
Right.
And all the other drivers are there too. So I'm going like this, punching. I'm trying to get, because I got about an inch of ice on my hood, and I can't get to the zipper.
Wow.
So I'm punching to get the ice on. So I get the zipper down, and I get one arm, and I can't get, this arm won't work. George Sadowski happened to be in that race. He wasn't hurt, but I says, George, help me out here. And he gets the sleeve out in my arm, and from here down, it's broke, snapped in half, just hanging like this. I never felt it. That's
Wow.
I was just frozen solid. I never felt it. Anyway, the other guy breaks his leg, snaps his ankle or something. They take us to the hospital. No ambulance. The other drivers took us to the hospital. And we go into the hospital, and they say, our x-ray technician left for the day. He'll be back in the morning. And I says, well, what are you going to do?
What if there was trauma
my arm is
emergency?
dangling, and this poor guy's screaming in pain. They gave us a bunch of pain pills. They put a brace bandage on my arm, and we had to go back the next
An
morning.
ace bandage.
Ace band, yeah.
Wow.
And well, they picked it up and they put an ace band. So next morning we have to go back. You know what happened when we went in there? I had a cast from here to here. He had a cast on his leg, and we come outside, and the car has a flat tire. Anyway, that's how bad Green Mountain was. And you know who owned Green Mountain? The Rooneys. It used to be a dog track. They changed it into a dog track. It was
Wow.
It was a horror. It was
The Rooneys owned that also.
Yeah, it was a good ski resort. But it was a tough place to race. Okay, the next track was in the middle 70s, Monicello. There was a restaurant across the street from Monicello. Now everybody will remember this, that race in Monicello, because it was the talk of the track for a long time. Across the street from the racetrack was a little diner called the Round Robin. And there was a guy there who thought who the hell he was. He thought he was a big shot. He was a big gambler and this and that and everything else. And he always used to come look for information and everything. And so one day he's sitting talking. And I think I was with Lou Gigani. And we were having breakfast. And he says, I heard you guys are playing Concord, because we had a softball team. Right. I was the pitcher in the softball team. I heard you guys are playing the Concord. So I says, yeah. He says, you want any action on that? I says, yeah, what do you want to bet? He thought he was going to scam me. He says, well, how about 10,000?
He didn't know he was talking to a real bettor.
Well, it just... So he says, he says, how about 5,000? Does that scare you?
No.
I says, why don't we just make it 10? What, 5?
You just tell him, say it.
It's all right, 10,000. Yeah. So he says...
told him, I don't rattle.
I says, pick who do you want? He says, who do I want? He says, I'm taking the Concord. I says, okay. Now, I think we played on Saturday or Sunday. So now the day comes where we're having the game.
You got them to throw the game.
My cousin, Joey, who I got a job as the bartender there because of Bobby Parker, who owned I had horses with him. I got my cousin a job. And he played third base. So I says, Joey, I says, listen, I says, I don't want you to look bad, because he was a good guy, strictly legit, just got hurt real bad in the war, and the Korean War, and he was just a good guy. He got frostbite on his feet. He had to wear these big, ugly shoes. Terrible. Good guy. And I hated to tell him. I says, but look, I told him. I says, look, I don't want you to do whatever you could do. So anyway. And the Concord had a better team. And so now what happens is we go to play. Who shows up? Leon Greenberg, the general manager of Monicello Raceway. He wants to play. Now he's the general manager. So I says, Leon, I says, well, we're having a game here. We want to win. I didn't tell him I bet. We want to win. And he said, oh, just let me play a few innings. I says, all right. I says, but these guys have been practicing all week. Are you going to take it? Just let me play a few innings.
Oh,
well, by the 7th inning, we were losing, I think 8-2 or something like that. And naturally at the time, I didn't have the 10,000. So, but to make a long story short, and everybody from Monticello knows the story, we want, because I got a hold of my cousin Joey. I says, like any ball that comes, you got to let it go. You got to put it between your legs. Oh, if you catch it, overthrow first base, do whatever you have to do.
So you got a ringer.
and he did. And I wind up winning the bet, and I give my cousin Joey $1,000. Okay, so that was the race at...
That's Monticello.
That's Monticello. Right. I got one more race at Monticello, and everybody that raced there will know this. It was probably 1970, 72, something like that. And that's when I was fixing a lot of races there. And I needed the horses that were in front, I needed. and there were 4 horses I left out, and they were all in the back. The only one I couldn't get was this guy, and he was a good guy too, a Spanish guy, Humberto Rodriguez. Really good guy, but he didn't want to know nothing. So I never bothered him. But because of the race and how it went,
He wasn't corruptible, in other words.
no. And them guys I just left alone. Him, Catello Manzi, all of them straight shooters. I just used to leave them alone. And
Catmandu, they used to call him, right?
no, he's a good driver. He's good. He's the Hall of Fame.
No, but they called him. Nickname was Catmandu.
To me, he was my friend. He was Cat, and but he one of the hardest workers in the whole industry. I mean, him and Hervé travel. Hervé eventually got a helicopter to go back and forth. Cat just drove himself, all kinds of weather and everything else. Really good guy, tough guy. He's a good friend. I raced with his father and his uncles and his cousins before.
Devoted driver.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So anyway, Humberto, who I needed out, winds up in the 3-hole. I needed the first 2 finishes, so now I come up alongside of him, and I'm on the outside of him, locking him in. He can't get out. I need the first 2 finishes there, and I need somebody from behind me to come around me and win, which would happen. At the 3/4 pole, Humberto says, "Larry, let me out," and I couldn't let him out. I felt terrible, but I couldn't let him out. I needed to cash that bet. And he starts whipping me with the whip.
Wow.
Right across the face. I put my head down, he starts hitting me with the whip. He catches my helmet now this way, and I'm keeping him in there, and I'm jamming him a little bit. And he keeps whipping and whipping and whipping. And right after the wire.
Yeah, but that's not tolerated, right?
You would have did the same thing. The poor guy could have won the race. I got him jammed in. He's asking me to let him out.
I'm saying there's usually an inquiry after that.
I'm going to tell you. Let me finish. I'm going to tell you what happened. After the race, when everybody crosses the finish line, I'm still right next to him. And I jam him in, and I put him and his horse over the rail. Well, naturally, we get called in. As soon as we get back, Larry Rolla and Rodriguez to the paddock judge. And we got in, we got fined $500 each. Naturally, I paid his fine. I apologized to him. I think I gave him a couple of thousand because I did that. I felt terrible. But that's the shit that I had to do because I had to do it. Okay. Next race was at Pocono Downs. I bought a horse, and I had the name. I think the horse's name was Crane Wilser. I think. I bought the horse from Art Nadelson, who was the feed man there, and he wanted to sell the horse, and I bought him. And I changed a couple of things around, and the horse got he was really good. And this is during the years when I had to come up with the $15,000 every week for the VIG and everything, and always wheeling and dealing and scheming. But it was not the sum of meat. It was the handle. There was no handle there. So I'm looking to make like 10, 15, 20, 30,000. They had a race in Pocono called a twin double. You had to bet, and I hope I get this right. It was 50 years ago. You had to bet, say, the 6th, 7th race like it was a daily double. Then if you won that, you traded your tickets in for the 8th and 9th race. And if you hit that was you had to hit 2 doubles in a row. Hit the first one, turn your ticket in, hit the second one. So what I did was, this horse was really good. I put the horse in hoping that he would get into one of them races, and he did. So I was in Monicello, but I put him in a Pocono because the twin double pool was like 20, 30, 40,000.
Oh.
So, and my horse was going to be a long shot because he was racing terrible for Art, finishing up the track every week and I made a few changes. I got him good. I upped him in price so he would be a long shot. And then what I did was I took, and I probably got this a little wrong, but it was something like this happened. I told, Donald was the one that bought the horse, Donald Catarano, my friend. And I knew the horse couldn't lose in the class I put him in. Let's say he was a 5-claimer. I put him in for 7,000 or 8,000. He was going to be a long shot, but I knew that I could win. So what I did was I wound up being in the 8th race, assuming there was 9 races. I was in the 8th race. So what I did was I looked at the 2 races before, and I picked one of the races where I used, I think it was the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th choice. I used 4 horses out of the 8 or 9, and I wheeled them 10 times with everybody in the next race. I think it cost me like $600. So I made a wheel with each of the 4 horses, like say 1, 2, 3, 4. I did 1 all, 2 all, 3 all, 4 all.
Right.
Okay, one of them horses wins. Now I have everybody in the next race. Now the plan was, Donald was in the paddock with me because he was the owner. The plan was we had enough tickets now to use me with everybody in the...
To wheel you with everybody else. Right.
Everybody in the last race. But the plan was that if I won, the tickets were going to be worth a lot of money. And I was going to go into the paddock after the race and tell the guy on the 1st and 2nd choice to be out of it. I'll give you a ticket.
Right,
There's probably
right.
30, 40,000 in the pool. I'll give you a ticket. And even if we whack up 10, 15,000 each, you just be out of it.
Right.
So that was the plan. Donald had all the tickets. Now the race goes off. I win. Now I'm in the winner's circle, and I just want to get back to Donald's in the winner's circle with me. And I says, you got the tickets and everything? Yeah. He said, get back to the paddock. Get a hold of them guys. We'll get the whole pool. So I says, all right, now I'm in the winner's circle. I'm in the bike. And the track guy comes out to hold the horse for the winner's circle picture. And so Donald's standing next to me with Aura, this girl Aura I used to go out with at the time. She's in the winner's circle picture with Donald. And I stop the horse. The track guy grabs the line, stands by the head of the horse, and the horse rears up in the air. When he rears up in the air, the guy holding the horse yanks down on the line.
Oh.
When he yanks down on the line, the side piece of the bridle breaks, and the bit comes out of the horse's mouth. When he comes out of the horse's mouth, all this is happening as he's on his way back down to the ground. So he's on his way back down from rearing up. The guy pulls the line, the bridle snaps, the bit comes out, and he lunges forward as soon as he hits the ground. When he lunges forward, I'm in the bike. I fall backwards because it's a sudden thing.
Right,
I fall backwards.
Sudden jolt.
Now,
right.
Almost all the drivers disconnect the lines. The 2 lines are buckled at the end of the lines, and then you fall and you sit on them. Everybody unbuckles them in case there's an accident. You can't get caught in the lines because they're separate. They're just two pieces of leather. I don't ever unbuckle the lines. I leave them buckled. When he took off, I fell backward. My leg gets caught in the lines because I didn't unbuckle them. The bridle and the bit hit him in the chest. So now it's just they're in his chest. I'm being dragged down there, and the horse is on a mad gallop, running like crazy, and my leg is jammed in the lines.
Plus he galloped. He was off stride also.
Yeah, he's running 100 miles, running as fast as he could run. And they finally, a bunch of guys put up blankets and everything else, and they stop him by the paddock. Now, when they stop him by the paddock, I'm half unconscious. I'm all busted up, but I got to get into the paddock. So now everybody's around me, and I said, "I'm all right. I'm pushing. I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm okay." And I look up, and I says, "Donald, give me up. I want to get back in the paddock and tell them 2 guys that are morning line favorites."
Right.
And I look up, and Donald don't pay, and Aura's crying, and they're looking at my legs. So everybody's looking at my legs. I'm looking at my legs, and my legs are going like this, 100 miles an hour,
Wow.
and I don't feel it.
Wow.
And I'm paralyzed from here down, paralyzed.
Wow.
And they take me to the hospital, and a couple hours later, they said I'd pinched some kind of nerves or something. Anyway, feelings start coming back and everything, and I was all right. We wind up hitting the twin double, but one of the favorites won, and I think we win maybe 5,000-10,000. I don't remember, but had I seen the guy, had that not happened, I would have wind up hitting the whole pool, maybe 20,000-30,000 in the pool. Okay, wow. So that's the story when I got paralyzed at Pocono. Okay, then there's Freehold Raceway. Here's a story about Mike Gagliotti, and then I got one about your friend there. Mike Gagliotti, I sell him a horse called Mary Martha, $10,000. And she had just won 3 in a row. I didn't like her. I didn't want her. She was a rotten pulling witch. And I didn't want her. No groom wanted to take care of her because she jogged 100 miles an hour, and I just didn't want her. And Mike bought her for $10,000. So now she's in the race at Freehold. Mike was racing at Freehold, and I had a horse called Tootsie's Best at Freehold. That's another good story, but I won't get into it now. And I had a horse of Bobby Scores that used to be a trainer at Yonkers in Roseville. He sent a horse to me, Tootsie's Best. I'll tell that's a good story. So anyway, I'm in the paddock, and I get called to the paddock judge, and he says, "Listen, Mike got sick. He's in the emergency room. He's got terrible cramps. He put you down to drive this horse, the horse I hated." And but no big deal, because you just pull you so bad, you ram into the gate, you just put her on the gate. She's always bloodied her nose from ramming into the gate, and then she just tried to climb over the gate, but the gate's going, and then you just turn her loose and she goes. And so Mike says, I says, "What happened?" So I go to the emergency room, and I says, "What happened?" He says, I can't drive this horse." I says, "Why not?" He says, he sold the horse to 3 different owners, and they were all there. And if he won the race, they would all show up in the winner's circle. So he says, "You got to get her beat." I says, "Get her beat? How are you going to get her beat? You can't control her. She's a loose cannon." And he says, "You got to get her beat." That's why he wouldn't drive her.
Wow.
So, and Mike always put you in these spots all the time. He always finds something. I mean, he was a good guy. He'd do anything for you. But on the other hand, he put you in some tough spots sometimes. So now they had a guy, Gus, as one of his good grooms, his old man Gus, taking care of the horse. He was an old guy, and grouchy old guy, but he took care of the horse. So I say to Gus, I says, "Gus, look, hang on to this horse. After the parade, I'm coming right back here. Hang on to her. I'm not going to score her down because I'll never stop her. And I'll go right to the gate." Okay, so that's what we do. Now the marshal calls us. They open the wings of the gate, and here I come, 100 miles an hour. Boom, right into the gate like she always does. Cracks her nose open like she always does. Blood pouring out like it always does. And the starter's yelling at me, "Control that horse." I says, "Get this gate out of here. Get it out of here. Let's go." Anyway, we go. Now, I can't make the top, because if I make the top, she'll win. And then Mike's going to have a problem because he sold the horse for $10,000 to 3 different people.
Wow.
And they're all there. So now I have to get a beat. So I ram the gate. And then I try to, but now the gate's picking up speed, and I try to jam her back. Now I'm off the gate like a length or 2, and now the starter screaming at me, "Get that horse up here!" And I let her run again, and I ram the gate again, just as the gate opens, and she makes a break, which was what I wanted.
Right.
She makes a break and everything, and then I pull all the bullshit moves, strangling her and this and that. I hook a guy's wheel, this poor kid. I hook a guy's wheel, we're sideways and everything, and bouncing off of everybody. She finishes 3rd. And I get back to the paddock, and Gus must have bet on the horse. She wore a burr head pole on the inside. He takes the head pole off. Burr. He starts beating me with the head pole. And that's the Gagliotti story with Mary Martha. Now, That was in 1969. In 1969 was when I was making the move up to Monticello. After '69 was Lincoln Downs, and then was Monicello. And now I'm at Freehold Raceway. When I get to Freehold Raceway, I call up Charlie. And I says, Charlie, I says, how much money you got? I says, why? I says, because I got stalls in Freehold. I'm coming in there, and I have 3 horses that can't lose. Can't lose. And he says, all right. I says, just get as much as you could. Don't worry about it. So I win all 3 races. And I come out to the grandstand. Now, going there, I was broke because I was racing a green, all these other tracks. I had no money. So I says, whatever you borrow, we're partners. Whatever you bet, we're partners. So I go to the grandstand after the race, and who's there? That's when I met Little Sammy and Cabert.
Right.
And he introduced me. I didn't know who they were. He says, these are my friends. They're the ones that lent me the money, and he's cashing and counting the money, and he's paying them back and everything. And that's when I first met little Sammy and Cabert.
Right.
And that's where I got the introduction and everything else. And then that's when I started the whole betting thing. It all started from there. But shortly after that, maybe a year or 2 later, I was always dealing with Sammy. Sammy wound up killing somebody in a holdup or something, and he went to jail.
Yeah, he went away 17 years. He did. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the end of Sammy. And then the last one I'm going to say is about. I think I mentioned this before. I don't know. In 2006, I won't get into the whole story, but me and my partner Don, we built the Hypoxic stall, the stall with less oxygen. In other words, it'd be like if you were training at 10,000 feet above sea level, and at that point, at that
right, less oxygen, right?
Less oxygen, your body automatically produces more red blood cells, and then when you come out of that situation or come down from that above sea level, and you come down to sea level, you have probably 20-30% more red blood cells in your body, right. So you can go for it. It's very similar to Epigen, that they give a horse to produce more red blood cells, and you become like a super horse. People become super people.
Right.
And so that's how I got the idea, because in the '65 Olympics, everybody that won a gold medal come from high altitudes, and they checked it out, and that's why. Okay, so me and Don invented this Hypoxic stall. Now, while we were inventing it and making all adjustments, because it was very complicated, because it's not just like making an Hypoxic room, less oxygen. You have to take into consideration the dust from the straw and the hay, the manure, the urine, so you got to make all kinds. And it took us a while but while we were building it and making all these better changes, we had 2 horses that we were partners with, Search Mission and Willetstown. And we were stabling them in there as we were doing it. So now I was stabling them in there. They were in there like 20 hours a day. And we turned them out and trained them and this and that. Now they were ready to race. And I noticed a big difference in them. Now, Willetstown I bought, he hadn't raced in a year, so this was his first race back. And Search Mission, I think the same thing. And I put them in at the Meadowlands. I put myself down the drive. And this was in 2006. And I win with both horses. Both horses win easy in hand. And then we made it even better, and we made it better to stall. And in 2011, this trainer, I can't think of his name, the horse was Broadbond. He was an Australian guy. And he had the farm next to our farm where we were building at Don's farm. And he wanted to buy the stall, because he was right next door. He saw what we were doing. He wanted to buy the stall. And he bought the stall for Broadbond. And Broadbond was a horse that he was eligible for the Hamiltonian that year, 2011. But there were 3-4 horses he could never beat. And but he bought the stall. He put him in the stall. And first race out of the stall, he won, and he won again. and he wound up winning the Hamiltonian. And so that's the story about. I got, when I told that story on a podcast, I got maybe 4 or 5 requests to go back into building these stalls for these guys. That would eliminate the epigen and all the abuse and everything else. And the racing commission.
Well, that's something to think about.
No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. That was when the Arabs wanted. That's the deal. The two.
Yeah.
I told that whole story. I'm not gonna go into it again. So anyway, that's it for today. I'm sorry I didn't have something that you could yell or argue with me about today, but we'll try.
Oh, I'll think of something. Don't worry.
We'll try it again. Anyway, thanks, folks, for listening.
And folks, if you like what you see, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you know what's coming on an upcoming episode with Larry and I. And it's good to see you once again with my partner, Larry. And again, nice seeing you again, and good night.
See you next week.